As Chris said, my name is Raducha. I'm from Faculty of Physics, University of Warsaw, where I'm a PhD student under supervision of Professor Richard Kuttner. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak today. And the purpose of today's presentation is to outline some of our results in the model of social interactions on coevolving networks, including power law degree distribution. And these results were partially published in Physica A this year. So let me start from the very beginning, which is the original paper published in the 90s by Robert Axelrod on the model of social interactions, also called the model of dissemination of culture. It was originally defined on the static square lattice, where every individual is one person, and this person can interact only with its neighbors. And during this interaction, nodes are becoming more similar to each other, so we've got local increase of homogeneity. But despite this local increase of homogeneity, we can end up in inhomogeneous state. So here we can see two typical final states for the original model. First one is ordered with one global domain. The domain is just one color here. And the second one is disordered, inhomogeneous despite this local increase of homogeneity. And what is the interpretation of this model? The state of the node describes its culture as a very general term. It can be hobby, beliefs, attitudes, etc. Or the second interpretation is that the state of the node describes the language it uses. So, and I will stick to the second interpretation during my presentation. So we've got here many different languages, and here we've got one global language, and everyone uses it. And this model has several more interesting results, but I would like to mention just two main issues of the original model. First of all, it is defined on static square lattice, and real-world social networks are not static, obviously, especially in a timescale corresponding to some cultural changes or changes in the language. And square lattice is also not the topology we should expect in social networks. For example, in scientists or actors collaboration, we have power law degree distribution. And the second issue mentioned even in the original paper by the author is contradiction to empirical data for Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands is a country consisting of over 900 separate islands northeast from Australia, and official language there is English. But a year before independence, in the 70s, some anthropologist, John Terrell, reported over 100 separate languages on these islands, and he plotted number of languages against the size of an island. The dependency was proportional, so the bigger the island, the more languages people speak there. The behavior in the original model is exactly opposite. So the bigger the system, the more homogeneous it gets. So this is really issue, and I will come back to that later on at the end of my presentation. But let me define a model that we actually were simulating, which is model with coevolution. So we can switch connections. We have to define a number of nodes and number of links or average degree. Initial topology doesn't matter due to rewiring mechanism. Every node is described, the state of the node is described by f traits. So we've got here f is equal to 5, we've got 5 numbers on every node, and every trait can adopt one of q values, only integers from 1 to q. And so this is typical starting configuration, not typical but very, very simple. And the core of our simulations is algorithm. So let's have a look at even simpler example with f equal 2, so we've got 2 traits on every node, and q equal 3. Every trait can adopt one value, 1, 2, 3. And what we do in every time step, we randomly select one of the nodes from the entire network, and we call this node the active node. Then we draw one of its neighbors, and we compare the traits. And the interaction occurs if there is at least one the same trait on both nodes, and this interaction occurs with the probability proportional to the size of this overlap. So here, trait number 1 is different, trait number 2 is the same. We've got 50% chance for interaction, but let's say this time it doesn't occur. So we go to the second time step. We draw the active node, we draw one of its neighbors, we compare their traits. We've got, again, 50% chance for interaction. So let's say this time it occurs, and it consists of adopting one of not shared traits from the neighbor to the active node. So they are becoming more similar, and after interaction, both are the same. The third possibility is when the active node and the neighbor are completely different. Here we've got 3 on both nodes, but this is on the different position, so both traits are different. In that case, we erase the edge. We randomly select from the entire network one node as a new neighbor, and we connect the active node to this new neighbor. This is the rewiring mechanism. And the last possibility is when 2 nodes are already identical, and in that case nothing happens. So this is the condition for the frozen configuration. Every pair of connected vertices has to be the same. But the main question here is how to draw a new neighbor. Originally, it was in the first model of coevolution. It was done with uniform probability for every node in the network, except the active node and its neighbor, because we don't allow auto connections and multiple connections. But this uniform probability leads to the Poissonian degree distribution and to relatively small values of clustering coefficient. And again, it doesn't describe real-world social networks. We've got high values of clustering coefficient and not Poissonian degree distribution in real-world social networks. So that's why we decided to investigate 4 different possibilities, 4 different models. And I will call these models Model E, Model B, Model C, and Model D, with different probability distributions in the network for the nodes being chosen as a new neighbor during the rewiring mechanism. So the Model A is just preferential attachment. Model B is also linear dependence, but with higher probability, just so lonely nodes have probability greater than 0 of being chosen as a new neighbor, so they can be attached to the network again after detaching. Model C is some non-linear dependence, and Model D is local switching. So we are rewiring only to the neighbors of our neighbors, only to the nodes distant by 2 edges. So this one, this rewiring mechanism by the definition should increase the value of the clustering coefficient. What are the results? This is a typical phase diagram for these models. Here we've got parameter Q. This parameter tells us how many different integers every trait can adopt. And here we've got usual order parameter for these kind of models, which is size of the largest component and largest domain. Size of the largest component is just the size of the largest connected subgraph in the network, and largest domain is largest connected subgraph of the network with every node having the same set of traits. So by the definition, largest domain must be smaller, must be subgraph of the largest component. What we can see are 3 phases. The first phase is ordered, homogeneous, with one big component consisting one domain, one language. Then we've got second phase, which is disordered, inhomogeneous, with many small components. And these 2 phases are static, in a sense that every run of simulation ends up in a frozen configuration when nothing can happen. Increasing Q further, we obtain third phase, in which recombination occurs, and again we've got one big component, but smaller. This is the relative size of the largest component, from 0 to 1. This time is smaller, but it's inhomogeneous inside. We've got many different domains inside this largest component. And this qualitative picture is quite similar in all models. What is different is the position of transition points and the level of recombination in the third phase. So, for example, this was the model B. Comparing it to the model A, we've got different position of the second transition point, and we've got much slower level of recombination in the third phase. In the model C, we've got both transition points shifted to the smaller values of Q, and again different value of recombination. In the model D, with local rewiring, we've got different behavior in the first transition point. different scaling. I will show this in a moment. Both transition points are shifted the most to the left, and we've got the lowest value of size of the recombination. These are the different differences. What else is similar in all models is the behavior at the transition points. Of course, we can obtain transition. We can see where transition points are by looking at the change in the order parameter and maximal value of the fluctuations. But as well, both transition points have special properties, and for the second transition point, the special property is maximal value of clustering coefficient in every model due to formation of many small complete subgraphs inside the network. And for the first transition point, this special property is power law distribution of size of the components. And this is universal property in the first transition point among all models. And we've got power law distribution of size of the components only at the first transition point, so it suggests some sort of criticality at this first transition point. But now let's have a look at these three phases on the networks. So we've got model A with preferential attachment. The first phase is homogeneous, and every color here denotes one domain, so one language. In the first phase, we've got one big component consisting almost all nodes with one domain inside. Going to the second phase, network disintegrates into many small components, but every component is homogeneous inside. Every component consists only one color. And increasing further, we obtain third phase. In this example, we've got many lonely nodes and one large component, but inhomogeneous inside, because we've got many different domains inside this largest component, many different languages. And just one more example, model B, where lonely nodes have non-zero probability of being attached to the network again. So here we've got what is different. We've got much less lonely nodes in the second and in the third phase. We also obtain power law degree distribution in the model with non-linear dependence, so the model C. Here we can see this distribution for the first phase, and we can see that we've got the same slope for all sizes of the network. In the second phase, situation is a bit different. We've got some sort of finite size effect, but the larger the network, the wider is this scope in which our plot is linear, so it suggests that in the thermodynamic limit we've got power law degree distribution, and the same holds in the third phase, but only for relatively small values of Q, because increasing Q to the infinity, this distribution becomes discontinuous with a peak for very big values of degree. So we've got star configuration with one hub connected to almost every other node in the network. And last but not least, I would like to mention scaling behavior of the model D, so the model with local rewiring. Why it's interesting? First of all, this scaling behavior is different than in all other models. In all other models, previous models, both transition points are shifted to the bigger values of Q with increase of the system size. So it suggests that there is no discontinuity in the thermodynamic limit. Here we can see that the first transition point remains in the same place when growing network. So we've got discontinuity in the thermodynamic limit. And what else is different than in other models is behavior of the homogeneity of the system with increase of the network size. Here, only in this model, for all phases, when we are increasing the system size, the largest component becomes smaller. Relative size of the largest component becomes smaller. And why is this important? It will be easier to see on the last plot. Here we can see number of domains, so number of languages against the network size. And blue points are our results for the model with local rewiring. Red dots are the results for the original model, for the first model with coevolution, with uniform probability during the rewiring mechanism. So it can be interpreted that in this way that we've got here number of languages against the size of an island. So we can see that the bigger the island, the more languages we have. Exactly as in the case for Salmon Islands. So it's nice that we don't have this contradiction to empirical data, and no such behavior exists in the original model.
Absolute.
Not the first original model, but the original model with coevolution, made by not absolute. So summing up, we managed to obtain some important features of the real-world social networks, such as high value of clustering coefficient, not only in the second transition point, a small word effect, obviously, except the model with local rewiring, various degree distributions, including power law, exponential, Poissonian as well, a Gaussian. We've got different level of recombination in the third phase, and our results for the last model are consistent with empirical data for Salmon Islands. And at the end, I would like just to remind you once again about our website on behalf of the organizing committee, website of the Econophysics Colloquium, ec2017.org, where you can find all the details about the conference, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. You are more than in time. You did it even quicker. So, time now for the questions. Do you have any questions or comments? IDs? I know this is the end of the day, so maybe people are a bit tired, but yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Can you remind me the conditions to get the different degree distributions? I mean, where
The condition for
where do you get the power law distribution and where do you get the exponential distribution? Because you said that
it varies from model to model and from phase to phase.
yes.
So I can give you some sort of condition for the degree distribution.
Yeah, but that's what I actually meant. Like which model and which phases?
I don't remember exactly, but I have some more plots, so I could continue for at least half of an hour again. At the end. So we've got in the first phase this model A, B, C, and D. So we've got Poissonian exponential, Poissonian exponential. It means that in all phases we've got we have some range of the parameter Q, and in every phase the distribution can vary according to this parameter Q. So in the first phase here we've got Poissonian or exponential, Poissonian or exponential distribution, power law in the model C, and here Poissonian. In the second phase we've got exponential in two first models and power law in the model C. Here it's unclassified, it's difficult to tell. And in the third phase we've got Poissonian
so
exponential
basically power law only for C model.
Yes, only for the C model with non-linear dependence.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Right. Another question? Yes.
Still thinking about naive interpretation that when size of the island is larger, then the number of languages present is also larger. Could you intuitively describe why it's going on, or it's a result of modeling? Or I understand it's a result of modeling, but maybe I want to say naively at least say few words in this direction.
About should I interpret the empirical data or explain the results in the models? Because
the
empirical data
and why it
is
should
difficult.
be,
Why it should be like this?
why we observe such isolated phenomena.
I think first of all the same behavior as for empirical data we've got only for the model with local rewiring. So we have no long distance switches. We have no flags like in small world networks. And maybe this is the case for some of the social real world social networks, especially when we are describing the spread of the language. And then we don't have some long distance switches in at least for Solomon Islands in the
It's
70s.
really against small words.
Yes,
the
it's
phenomena.
against small word effect.
Yes, against small. Yeah.
Against.
Inverse.
Yes.
Small word effect. Yes. So that's,
You want to mention something related to that?
I want to comment on it because
Ah,
actually
yes,
I would
yes.
say that that may be connected to there's this social phenomena that we have there's like the it's called the number of I don't remember the name of the science, but it's like so you have like this closest friends and it's always like I don't know 3 people and then you have like further friends and colleagues and it's like 3 and then it's like 9 people and it's like 15 people and it was shown to be like similar to the structure of military, for example, and it is both for people and for animals. So here it would make sense because then you have the islands are bigger, so you have more and more people, but still each person have like only 3 best friends. So like it would make sense to have more, let's say, social groups when you have more people, right? So it's not like one group is scaling with the number of people, but the number of groups is scaling with the number of people. And so it makes sense as well if you think about languages, because you have those, like connected groups.
And this is not the case for small word networks because you've got these long distance switches and you can have the same number of clusters inside the small word.
Yes,
Yeah,
the question.
just light-heartedly, phase 3 looks like a crescent moon and a star. With phase 3, is it crescent moon and a star? A bit like Pakistani flag.
I don't know why. I
Last question is probably the most important one.
think no one speaks Pakistani on Solomon Islands, but I'm not sure.
Another question, maybe? All right. So then, well, thank you again. All right,